Can I ask you, when you score that early against Manchester City, is any part of you, Thomas, like, holy crap, we just poked a bear? My guest today is one of the most innovative Danish exports since Lego, Kierkegaard, or Lars Ulrich. A former kindergarten teacher and youth coach turned Premier League manager with mighty Brentford, a gent on a perpetual search for innovation and minute competitive advantages. We'll talk about his latest, the gone in 60 seconds, score straight from kick-off move that has proven surreally unstoppable. It's a joy to say welcome to Mr. Thomas Frank.
Thanks, Rog.
Thomas, one of the stories of this season, your Brentford setting one of the most remarkable records, scoring in the first minute of play, inside the first 40 seconds in 3 consecutive games, and then having to wait an eternity, 76 seconds in the fourth. Can you tell us about the origin of the idea, where you first realised you could strike while your opponent was sleeping?
I think it's there's several things that are affecting this. One is that we have a clear strategy in every single set play we have on the pitch, like throw-ins, kick-off, corners, and so on. So it's something we've actually been practicing for quite a few years. Then we have maybe a tiny bit more focus, but also when you score the first goal, you get a little bit more confidence that maybe you can do it one more time. So I would say the first one happened, planned, or we wanted to try to do it. Second one, and then suddenly it was a story. Third one, then everyone got interested. And I said it after the game against Wolves. The only reason why we didn't do it 4 times in a row is because we lost the coin toss. So we lacked 30 seconds of time there. So now, jokes aside, we have a plan, we have a strategy, and we have a mindset about how we want to try to score goals.
You say you practice the kickoff. How many hours went into training this? You know, how do you practice it? Is it on a daily basis, a weekly basis?
No, it's more weekly. It's not. It's we practice it, I would say, 1 to 3 times before each game. But because there's elements from the open play, like how do we land on the second ball, how do we counter press, how do we try to produce early cross, how do we run into the box. So all that is part of the open play strategy.
In the first game that it happened, Johan Wieser stabbing home against Manchester City, I've got to say, you look very chill on the sideline. But can you describe the emotions when something that you've identified, practiced, and then made real comes to pass against Pep Guardiola, no less? Do you get a special thrill? I mean, on the A-team, they used to say, I love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah. But that's true. I think one of the best feelings by being a coach is when some specific pattern you trained or a game plan, all that suddenly come together, then that's a fantastic feeling because that's something you worked hard on. If I'm completely honest, I probably was a little bit surprised that we scored that quick against Man City. Then we were a little bit more aware against Tottenham. And then, of course, we suddenly, okay, hey, can we do it again against West Ham? Scored. So actually, the biggest celebration was probably against West Ham home.
I want to talk about that. Can I ask you, when you score that early against Manchester City, is any part of you, Thomas, like, holy crap, we just poked a bear?
Not really. I was just, didn't really score myself side, but no, it was good.
And so the next game against Spurs, Brian and Bumo went fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice and I'll score in the 23rd second. The third week, West Ham knew it was coming, Thomas. The midfielder, Thomas Souček, he even said the Hammers, quote, prepared very well for your blitzkrieg attack. But you scored again in 36 seconds, and he said, we have to be embarrassed that we've fallen for it. Thomas, you can be honest, were you shocked that it worked a third time?
Shock, maybe a big word, but let's take a little bit of statistics into it. I think it's 1 in a million it could happen, and so I probably wouldn't put my money on it. And I think another interesting stat, we have a lot of data guys behind the scenes, and They have analyzed more than 1 million games, and it's never, never, ever happened that anyone have done it 2 games in a row, I think.
So what does it mean if the data guys, and Brentford is built on a solid foundation of data? How do you explain to yourself that 3-game ecstatic run?
That everything is possible. Because we shouldn't be able to do it. It's definitely against the odds, but hey, I think it sounds simple. We need, of course, some margins going our way, of course, but it's a clear strategy. We train it, we have a mindset, and then it came all together.
4th game against Wolves. It took Nathan Collins 76 seconds to open the scoring, which must have felt like infinity for you. But the reality is, despite scoring early and often, Brentford lost to both Manchester City and Spurs and drew 1-1 with West Ham. There's an old adage in football, it's a borderline myth, Thomas, that a team can score too early. Do you believe that, Thomas Frank, that a team can score too early?
Not really. I understand if you score inside the first minute, the opponent got 89 minutes plus extra time to score or equalize or win the game. And if you score to 1-0 after 90 minutes, they have less time. So that's simple math. But I always believe I'm just a positive guy. So I believe in, can we score? That's positive. That's more positive than not scoring. So why not try? So that's the mindset.
Oh, sometimes positivity trumps data. And I've got to say, when it comes to scoring, Thomas, you've got an almost peerless record as a striker whisperer. You've had a biblical lineage of goal scorers at Brentford. Neil Maupay, Ollie Watkins, Ivan Toney, all had 20-plus goal seasons at Brentford and have then been sold on. When one of them leaves, you just seem to develop another scoring threat in their place, like a salamander regrowing their tail. How do you do it, Thomas? How do you turn these players into goal-scoring machines again and again and again? What are you looking for? What's the secret?
First, I've been privileged to have those 3, to work with those 3 players. They're very good, top mentality, top abilities, and that always help. But what I look at, a big thing I look at is how they move in the box, how we make sure they get into the right positions in the box, and then I'm very consistent in my messages, like every day training, video from the matches, training videos as well. If they're not in the right gaps on crosses or they're not working on the last line, that's the biggest thing for me.
And you now have Brian Mbeumo and, of course, Wissa coming back. But your top scorers in 7 of the past 8 seasons have since moved on. Does any part of you watch as your strikers score for fun and wish that they just tone it down a little bit so that they don't move and you have to start all over again building another elite striker like a managerial Sisyphus?
No, I think it's positive. The more goal they score, again, positive. The better it is for the team, for the club. And for the player, and I think it's no secret we are a selling club, so we also need to develop players that can go to the next level. And I'm very proud being part of, creating 3 plus 20 goal scorers, and actually maybe even more than that. And hopefully Brian Mbeumo can be the next one.
Thomas, this week marks 6 years since you were appointed as Brentford manager, and you once said, and I love this quote, that football can be 90% suffering and 10% joy, which is just fantastically masochistic. Where are you finding, or have you found, the joy in this game after 6 seasons with the Bees?
It's good. Thank you for reminding me. So I'm thinking why I'm still doing this if I'm only happy 10% of the time. I love the game in so many ways. I love to work with people. Very privileged to work with fantastic staff at Brentford. We created a great atmosphere together, a great performance culture, and I work with great players. So that bit, and I love try to develop organizations, teams, people. So all that gives me a lot of joy.
Can I ask you very quickly, Manchester United have had a difficult start to the season. How would you assess the threat they pose at this current time?
It's still Manchester United. It's still world-class players. We know if we don't perform to our absolute best, they can punish us in every second. They got players that in one moment can decide the game, and threats can come from 4 or 5 different areas. So Garnacho, Rashford, Fernandes, Højlund, you name it. So there's so many that can hurt us. But hopefully we can perform well and do a good job there and hopefully win.
Thomas, to you, your systems, your organisation, your team, tack.
Welcome.
Courage.